and we just get going. So hi everyone, welcome to the March Livenar edition. I am doing these free Livenars as I call them, every month and every first Tuesday of the month, because I really love sharing the experiences and the conversations I'm having with my clients, with my audience, and with other amazing experts who are in the same space as me or similar spaces, kind of touch into my leadership consulting space. So shortly about myself, because I know a lot of new people here. I see a lot of new faces and new names, and just so that you know who is in front of you as a host. My name is Anna Liebel. I'm based in Iceland, used to live in Sweden, and originally am from Ukraine. And I am a leadership consultant helping leaders reclaim their zone of genius. That can be both people in the corporate world and founders of the startups and their leadership teams. So I'm helping a bit of a different kinds of leaders. And as I said, these webinars are part of my contribution to sharing knowledge and expertise, inspiration, and practical tips with my audience and more. And I'm happy that you are here to take part in this. This is a very interactive workshop. We are very happy if you share your experiences, your questions in the chat. The advantage of joining us live, as I said, it's recorded, but the advantage of joining us live is actually that you can not only ask your questions and get them the answers, but you can also do it anonymously. So if you feel like your question is a bit sensitive, you wouldn't like to be put in the spot with that question, but you still feel like we might give you the answer, just ask me in private in the chat. You can choose, instead of to everyone, there is a drop-down list and you can choose my name, Anna Liebel, and you send a message to me with your question, and then I will voice your question and we'll discuss it anonymously. So this is an opportunity for you to learn more and to get some very particular answer to your question. So use it, and we'll be happy to support you as much as we can. So today I'm gonna talk with Sofia Appelgren, who is founder of Mitt Liv. For those who don't know Swedish, it's my life in Swedish. We'll talk about her story, about why did she found the company and what they're doing exactly. I am fascinated by Sofia and the company that she's built and what they're doing to the society. I've been following them for, I was trying to remember, I think it was 8 years, and actually
really
one of people who was one of the first ones with whom I discussed it, Joanna Dukic, she's here today, and it's really amazing to see her. She was, I think, in my team. Joanna, let us know whether I'm wrong with my memories, but she was in the mentee, and I got to know through a common friend about Mitt Liv, and I've been following the journey, really being excited about what you're doing, and also having huge respect for your contribution to the development of the inclusion in Sweden. So without further ado, Sofia, I will present you and start by asking my typical question: what is leadership and who is a leader for you?
Thank you, Anna, and it's a big pleasure to be here and meet you all. And please ask any questions during this hour together so it becomes interactive. And I'm a bit nervous actually, because I never do any lectures about the journey about Mitt Liv or so. I'm only out there working as a consultant, supporting others to find their answers. So bear with me. But what is leadership to me, Anna? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, so that's a very good question, because I've never really reflected over my own leadership a lot, actually. That's just something that I became because I had a clear purpose and a very strong vision of wanting to change a big problem at the Swedish labor market. So I'm very thankful for you preparing me on those questions. But for me, a leader is a person with a clear purpose who influences a group of people towards an achievement of a goal. And for me, leadership is someone who makes things happen and attract people to join the journey because it means something for the followers. So it's not only goals, I believe. It's about the vision. It's about the ability to see and understand other people around you and walking the talk. And for me, it's very, very important to show in your behaviors rather than talk. And I think that the biggest test on leadership is the followership. If you don't have the followers who want to join the journey, you can't call yourself a leader. And therefore, I think it's up to others, your followers, to define if you are a leader or not. So that's leadership to me. And in organizations, it's about supporting people to become the absolutely best version of themselves, supporting with the right tools and prerequisites. And I think when people around you feel their importance and they keep growing, you are a good leader. And I think also when as many as possible can get inspired and feel committed to your vision with both brain, heart, and soul, you have a confirmed leadership role.
Yeah, and I think this is a very good point about the followership and really being able to inspire people, because you don't have to have this on your business card as a manager or a leader to be able to do that. I think it's a very, very important point that I try to remind to all people around me, like, you don't have to be in a leadership position officially in your company to be a great leader in your company, among your friends and family, in your community. It's really about having that vision and getting people follow you on that vision and inspired and doing something together, creating synergies to bring the change that you see as a visionary, as the kind of the future in the world.
Yeah, that's so true. And I also think it's about that a good leader takes ownership of complexity by creating simple narratives around you so people can understand where you're heading and how you're going to reach your vision. Because the topics that we work with are extremely complex, but to bring as many as possible, we need to understand each other. And that is all about communication and making things reachable and simple.
Yeah, I love that point as well, Sofia, about having the ownership of the complexity. And this is so important for us as leaders to think about that. Okay, we might be like light years ahead of our team and we see the whole way, but to get people on board, we really need to break it down in small pieces. And actually that comes to the self-leadership quite a lot as well. Sometimes we see the vision for ourselves and we get scared and overwhelmed by it because we're like, this is just so far away from me. How can I get there ever? So this is also a very good thing about like owning that complexity and thinking like, okay, I can take one step at a time and actually keep moving forward, having that vision in front of me to make sure that I'm moving forward in the right direction. So it's a really great formulation, Sofia. I'm grateful for that. Thanks a lot. And just to make it clear for everyone, there might be some confusion on my side regarding expectations for this Livenar. So I just want to make it clear from the start that we're going to be talking about Mitt Liv journey as their organization, what motivated Sofia to start it, and how she has been developing it, because they have a lot of experience and they've gone through a huge journey, and there will be a lot of learnings from that. And we will have the D&I, the diversity and inclusion tips and discussions within that. But we thought that sharing the entrepreneurial journey of Sofia is a very valuable experience that she's not sharing that often. So we thought it would be really great to bring that to this discussion as well, not only the kind of tips about the diversity and inclusion from the corporate point. So Sofia, do you want to start about what brought you to the thought of Mitt Liv? Where did that come from?
So Mitt Liv works for an inclusive society and the labor market that values diversity. That is our vision. And I didn't put a word on our vision the day I started Mitt Liv 2008. It was a journey, but I had a very strong feeling that this was where I'm going to put my life into. And I also met someone who said something very inspiring in line with that it takes a life to build something. So I just felt very committed to this strong feeling that I want to be part of creating a fair and just society where everyone have equal chances. And in Sweden, we know that a job is key for integration, and it leads to so many psychological and I mean health benefits if you feel that you can contribute to the society via a job. So that's where I knew I could bring my experiences and my interest into the Swedish labor market and do something there. So I really wondered, sometimes I wonder how I ended up here 13 years later, but still loving Mondays and still burn for what we do, because that's really how I feel actually. But I think my values was formed very early in life. So I went to even at the kindergarten, I have strong memories and feelings, because my mom, she wanted to become a priest. I'm not religious today, but she wanted to become a priest, so she put me at a kindergarten, religious Christian kindergarten. But what was so valuable there was that we, in a very early age, was talking about values and how to treat people around us. We went visiting and supporting vulnerable groups, and it could be elder, people with disabilities and so on, or people that was not privileged with food, the basic needs like safe relations, food, roof, and things like that. And as a child, you never judge. You just like, you just get an early understanding of that the world is different for all of us, and some people are privileged and some are not, and that's not something you can accept. That's something you have to do something about. So and this feeling of responsibility has come and go all my upbringing actually. And the eye for the unfair and the frustration that came without anything doing something about the injustice, that gave me a strong drive for doing something. And then my father was traveling in his job around the world 2/3 of the year, all my growth. So I remember him taking religion, cultures, perspectives to the dinner table. So that was the normal to me. That was the normal that brought out curiosity, creativity, and my early memories from those discussions was that when my father was out in the world, I was looking at the Earth globe and where is he, in what country, how do they live there, and all those questions that popped up and made me very curious about different lifestyles and different cultures. So with this said,
may I interrupt you here before we move forward too far in the story? I really want to bring this back to this discussion around the dinner table, as you said, about the values and about the differences in the world and different prerequisites that we all have. Can you give us examples of how your parents brought those discussions up? Because I think that can be very valuable to us as leaders in our families with our kids, but also as leaders in the companies, because that can give some practical tips on how we can start those discussions about this important topic.
Well, I think just defining your values. What are the values? And even if we were talking about differences, we were also talking a lot about similarities, that we're all human, we all have basic needs, love is the same for everyone. So it was never something controversial or something that gave a negative feeling about anything. It was just curiosity. So, and I also think, I mean, we also talked a lot about that there is no right or wrong. It's just different. We don't have to say that things are right or wrong. We can just learn to accept that we do have different programming and views on things and perspectives, and that's interesting. And it can end there. So I like that, but still, of course, we're in Sweden, and in Sweden we have we're not maybe best in class yet, but we have come a bit far than many other countries when it comes to gender equality, for example. So there were certain things that we also made sure that we have to keep in progress and keep develop. So my brother and me could have the same prerequisites at the labor market later. So, but I think that just to talk about values, from my perspective, we talk too little about values. And that's something that concerns all of us. And when it comes to our companies and organizations, I think when working with D&I, we have to sign under common values. That's the beginning of everything. And it could be very basic things like respect and so on. But we have to agree that there are certain play rules in this group that we need to consider in our relation to each other, but also in all decisions that we take. So it's the same in a family, I think, or the same in the society and the companies. And companies are great talking about values, but it feels like we're going into a time where we lose the value conversations in our families more and more. We rely more and more at school to foster our children, and we rely more and more on the organizations to come up with the values, but we need to talk more about that. What's important for you and what's important for me, and how do we cooperate in the best way?
And if any one of you genius leaders who are listening or watching are feeling like, oh, another thing I need to do, think about how beautiful those moments can be when you discuss these valuable things with your kids. When I have a friend who discusses it a lot, and she shares on the internet about like, this is the question that my daughter came to me today with. And you read the question and you're like, is this a question from a 7-year-old? And they start challenging you and see it as a gift, because they will actually be curious. They are still they still have it in their mind, in their like muscles, this curiosity that we have lost. And that is the return on investment for you. You can get their curiosity back, and it's not another thing to kind of answer. It's actually see it as a gift, really, and a blessing that, this question, I haven't thought about it in 20, 30 years. Let's discuss it. And just keep exploring the world with your little ones. It's just such a beauty.
It is. And they are not, I mean, they are not as prejudiced as the grown-ups are. So they can be very direct. And that's something that I appreciate too. And I have 2 kids who are 15 and 13 now. And their father has Turkish roots and I have the Swedish roots. So we have and when we met 20 years ago, it was so clear that we had a labor market that full of prejudices. And I could see very closely how the process worked. And I just felt that this only confirmed that I had to do something about breaking down barriers for international talents. And I started to doing some research on the lost for Swedish companies if not taking care of all these amazing resources coming to our country. And I also wanted my kids to be proud over that they actually can bring out the best from 2 cultures. Then it has not been conflict-free, but that interests me too. Since I'm really thinking a lot of how on earth are we going to live together thanks to our differences in peace. And well, I'm still looking for answers, but I think we have with Mitt Liv come quite far actually.
Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying, because I'm also Ukrainian, living with a German husband in Iceland, and we met and lived in Sweden. That's where our daughter was born. So there is a lot of cultures mixed there, but that brings a lot of interesting conversations to the table, especially when we try to learn each other languages. And it's like, why is it this like this in German? And then explains to me like, this is so stupid, and we laugh about it. And then I think about Ukrainian, and I was like, we have it the same way. So it gives you perspective on your own culture, whatever it is, like your personal culture, your language, your family traditions, your company culture, and so on. So it really brings the perspectives that can just enrich in you. Sofia, was it really like clear for you? How can you help the international professionals get onto the work market in Sweden? Or have you tried different models before you came to the consultancy and mentorship? Can you tell us more about that journey?
Yeah, so I founded Mitt Liv 2008, and at that time diversity and inclusion topics were very much a CSR, a little question on the side of the companies. So I started with the Mitt Liv's Chance. It's a mentor program, and it's today the biggest mentor program in Sweden, directed towards people with foreign background with an academic degree. So we started it actually for 700 people 2 weeks ago, only this spring. So it's just growing so much. But when I started Mitt Liv, it started in the mentorship program. I wanted to build bridges between the forgotten part of the talent pool who couldn't break through the barriers, and mentors representing some companies with the same education as the mentees and working experience, so we could do a good match there. So engineer with engineer and doctor with doctor and so on. So the first year, it was a lot about exploring what are the tools into the Swedish labor market, and how can we design this program in the best way together. So the answers will come from the groups where the answers are, to keep it simple. So it was very much about and that's the same, same program today. And it's very much about for the companies to find competence. Some of the companies and partners we cooperate with go abroad to find talents that we already have in Sweden. So there's a huge mismatch. But the program is about very practical tools, like how do you write a CV in Sweden? How does the interview process look like? We talk about different organization cultures, and how, and also, how, and typical Swedish organization cultures and how you break through those. And we know that in Sweden, almost 7 to 8 jobs out of 10 goes to or via networks and contacts. So if you lack those professional networks, the time for you to get into the Swedish labor market will be very, very long, if not impossible. So you have to find those meeting places where you can build your own professional network. And so that we provide in combination with very practical tools. And the mentors are so engaged, and they become, in Swedish media, it's all the immigration topics are very negative written about today. So when the mentors join our programs and see this and face this amazing talent pool and all this competence, they also become important ambassadors for well, the positive side and opportunities with migration to our country. So and therefore they also open up for the topics within their organizations just by being mentors. So that's the program, and we have, the results are amazing, and that's because of we are not a government organization. No one forces anyone to come to us, so it's very driven by a free will and a very high engagement. So we have great results today, and we have so many happy companies that have actually started reaching out to this amazing talent pool through Mitt Liv's chance. So over 50% of our mentees in our last report got a job comparing to their competence during the program. And that is numbers that are amazing if you compare to the employment service in our country.
Yeah, that's amazing what you're doing. And it's super meaningful, because this is really the huge potential that a lot of organizations are missing on. Can you talk about the effects on the organizations? What do they find through this mentorship program? As you said, they open up for conversations, they start looking at that pool. What kind of ripple effects have you observed in all these years from that mentorship, like from the participation of the mentors in the program?
So except that mentors actually fight their own prejudices and become great ambassadors and open up their own minds. They also get an insight that what are we actually missing here for our company, and if we not, are in the race here, where will we end up then? If we not, are competitive to this talent group, what will we miss? So, all those increased awareness about what they might miss. But then it's also other parts in the partnership program. Except the mentors, we work with the management groups, we work with, the large, really global companies. They often have a D&I responsible that we work very closely with. And what we can see is that except increased awareness, there is an increased demand of concrete tools on how do we do this then? How do we set up goals? How do we make sure that we measure the process and the results? And how do we connect the KPIs to increase innovation, creativity, better decision making, maybe all the benefits that we can see D&I actually brings. Mm-hmm. And also I think the mentors brings in a view of discussing what is competence. How do we get a broader view of competence, and how can we use D&I to increase business opportunities, reach new markets, and new target groups in different ways. So it's only a win-win-win for everyone, this. Mm-hmm. And it's very positive. So
Yeah, that's great. You talked about the higher demand on the tools, and if I look down, it means that I'm writing the notes here. You talked about the high demand on the understanding which tools organizations can use for D&I. Can you give examples of what kind of tools people or organizations are implementing? And then maybe we can talk about this, what you see, what is the gap between the good intention and what the organizations maybe fail to do or to go all the way. And I would like to discuss this hard.
That's good. And it's we were talking about that before, but it can be very complex, and it's very context driven. It depends on what company you work with and how far they have come, what ambitions the specific company actually have. But I think the most important is to understand why work with D&I. And that differs a lot, actually, depending on what industry or what company you are in. But finding your purpose and why is very important. Even, and it can be that you want to be a drive for equal and just society, and that's fair enough. But it can also be that a company want to connect those perspectives to the business values in different ways. So you need to find your purpose and your why. And that is not an HR question only. It's actually a management issue. So I think in the management group, it all needs to start, and you need a commitment from the management group, the CEO, that this is something that we need to prioritize. So, and one tool is to measure, and that is very complex too, because it depends on also what industry or what business you are in. And the most common KPIs to measure is gender and ethnicity, age. In Sweden, is age and gender KPIs most companies set up, and all the other perspectives could be connected to the Swedish legislation. But also some companies want the perspective, the cognitive diversity. How do we measure?
Ask about that.
Yeah, how do we measure, like, you know, educational backgrounds, different life experiences, personality traits, and so on, to make sure that we have mixed groups, cognitively mixed groups. But that shouldn't be an excuse to not work with a representative diversity either. So what we do at Mitt Liv is to support with broad knowledge around those topics, and make sure that each company find their way to work with D&I. And then when you have measured or set up some KPIs, most companies, we know that we need to increase the knowledge in the organization, because diversity is often connected to gender and ethnicity in all researches, for example. But diversity needs to be defined by the company. What is it that our company is talking about when we talk about diversity? So we talk the same language about all those words. And we know that working with diversity can be very, start a lot of conflicts if not doing it in the right way, because suddenly you bring a lot of different people in with maybe different values. And not being prepared of that can actually instead be pretty worse. So you have to have the right tools among leaders, and make sure that everyone have the right knowledge about how to lead diverse groups, and strong leaders that can handle conflicts, and also make sure that diversity leads to the benefits that everyone is talking about. So I think inclusive leadership is crucial to make something positive out of diversity. And then you will also have, a lot of the challenges that appears happens in the recruitment processes too. How you communicate, how you have your interview process, are they including or excluding, making sure that the recruiters are very aware of unconscious bias, what decisions do they take on what grounds, and then the whole onboarding process, and after that, of course, leaders who embrace and make sure that everyone feel included. So there are a lot of tools working with this, but I think,
And I want to emphasize one thing that you said, Sofia, because I think it's very important about that D&I is not an HR question. I know that we have quite a lot of participants here who are coming from HR, and it's really amazing to see this interest. And I think it's very important that it really comes from the very top, because otherwise it doesn't happen. HR don't have all the resources to pull through this transformation, because it's a huge transformation and it's a process, and you need to really get it in the DNA of the company, and for that you need support from the top leadership. So genius leaders, if you're tuning in and you're a person within HR and you feel like you don't have the whole buy-in from your leadership team, give them this interview to start with, and then maybe they will be able to reach out to Mitt Liv, because Sofia, you're providing a lot of consultancy to the companies, right, to help them, to educate them. And also now you're starting something for the board of directors, right? So special education on D&I for the board of directors. Yeah. So I think there are a lot of great initiatives there, and there's amazing competence within your organization. So genius leaders, just tune into that and just shout out. It's not sponsored anyhow, but I just really love what Sofia and her team are doing. So just use that. And also want to give some shout out to at least two people who are here on the interview, Kasia, or on the live. Kasia, if you can say hi to everyone in the chat. Her company ICQ Global are doing amazing assessments, and they have a great tool to help companies to find this cognitive, or to identify the cognitive diversity or cognitive culture of each person. And then you can talk about that. And they have an amazing network of the coaches who are certified in that, using that tool, who you can also help your organization to improve in the cognitive diversity, because this is something that is often missed. And then Elena Ipanova, who is also here, I think still, she was on my previous Livenar and we talked about feedback, and she is also an expert in the global leadership and the cognitive diversity. So she helps companies with that. So if you need help in your organizations, just say hi to those people, connect with them on LinkedIn, and connect with Sofia, and reach out to Mitt Liv. There are a lot of people who are passionate about this and knowledgeable about this topic. You don't have to do all the errors yourself and do all the trial and error in a painful way. You can really create a healthy shortcut towards this diversity and inclusion in your company.
And we can also actually see that the requirements now on working actively with the D&I from investors and owners is increasing. So it's both the owners and investor perspective, and in their turn on the board. And so there's a huge lack of competence around D&I in boards. And they are the ones to give budget, to give a handshake to the management group to work on this. And sometimes we've seen that they set up unrealistic goals because they lack of knowledge. So it is so important to find a common platform on this, where we communicate on the topic and we mean the same things. So making the complexity more narrative and easy for everyone to understand.
That's really great that you see this gap and you really address it with what you're doing with your offer, because that's important. Like if you see like, okay, the decision makers are not having the knowledge that they need, and the intent can be really good, really positive, but they just setting the goals that set up everyone for the failure and frustration. So why can't we help them so that we actually come from the right direction? We have a question or two questions here in private. I got them, so anonymously. How would you define international diversity is the first question. And how would you go about a strategy for an international diversity program?
Ooh. So how do I define international diversity? I've never even actually heard that word. So maybe you can help me, you who asked the question. International diversity. I have to think about that one, because if I simplify it too much, I will regret later. So let me take that one into my team. Yeah. So, and the other one, international diversity in global companies. So for me,
international diversity programs, but yeah, maybe it is in the global companies.
Yeah, but do you mean for programs for international talents, or how do you? It would be easier if you define the international diversity word to me, actually.
Yeah, I'm asking that.
Yeah, because diversity is so broad, and I mean, that depends on the ambition level in the specific company, I think, on how they want to work with diversity. So I don't think it's only one model that fits all. So, and that's why this also is complex, but doing this the right way, in my perspective, is in cooperation with the company itself, to understand what is their purpose and what do they want to achieve with an active D&I, and how do they define diversity within their company, and there find ways to build global programs. For example, we run inclusive leadership programs globally now for Volvo, as I guess you all know about Volvo, Penta, and then we talk very broad about diversity, all perspectives, and it bottoms down to how do we work, how do we behave as human beings, what impacts our behaviors, what are norms, how do we identify exclusive norms within our organizations, or how do I become aware of my unconscious bias and prejudices? How does the basic psychological needs impact us when it comes to D&I? So I think it's hard to say how that there is one model to design a program for outcome international diversity. Actually, but we've done so much, so if you have something more concrete, I would love to give you some examples on how we work with specific companies. And I would also say that one of the most important tools that we have in Mitt Liv is our mentorship program, because even if we educate leaders and managers on all levels today in the companies, in inclusive leadership, we know that the biggest difference happens when you actually get out of your comfort zones, and when you get exposed to new perspectives in real life. That's when you really change your mindset and start doing things differently. So in combination with education and increased knowledge and our mentor program, we can make the biggest difference. So we've seen managers that we have educated and then who has entered the mentorship program, and that's when it happened. That's when that manager started to recruit differently. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not behind the desk during the trainings that the biggest shift is happening. Caitlin would like to unmute and explain a bit more the question about the international.
Yes, please.
Diversity. So,
thank you.
Hi. So I had a question about international diversity. I am from America, but currently studying a master's program at the University of Oslo. And my thesis is focusing on international diversity programs for international boarding schools. And so far in my research, there's no definitive definition for international diversity. So I've just been trying to ask different people in the DEIB field what they feel about it or what they think it is. Just because, like I said, in my research, there's nothing that really comes up upon it. So I'm trying to create a program that any international school can adapt to their educational institution, so that way they can create a diversity program that best fits for them by creating a broader program. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on how to approach a program like that, or just starting off with international diversity, if there's a certain area I would focus on for that.
Oh, that's so interesting. Can we have an email conversation around this? Because actually I'm getting interested in bringing this perspective into my team, just to hear, because my closest colleague and our consultancy manager, she's been working in several countries for over 20 years with D&I. So I just need to ask and discuss some with her, if that's okay. And I can get back to you hopefully with a more clear answer. Is that okay for you?
I can send you my email.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Kate.
Because it pops up new words all the time. I was at the seminar this morning and I at least heard 3 new words. And many times we mean the same things, but we use different languages. So yeah. So I'm happy to discuss with you through email, if that's okay for you.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Right. We have also a question here that I got. How did you, Sofia, enforce empathy and predominantly trust with the work that you were doing? You mentioned that people come to you over time and it works itself out, but how, as a leader, how did you do it in the beginning? How did you, I guess I interpreted now a bit, but how did you trust that it will work out? Because I could imagine that this entrepreneurship journey of Mitt Liv has not been a walk in the park.
That's such a good question, and I was really thinking about this the other day, that it's been such a journey. I mean, I went like far outside Gothenburg for a meeting at the employment service with one potential mentee the first year and I had an information some information moment about Mitt Liv's chance, and I was so happy this person applied, and we were 18 persons first year. So I just think that that's why it's so important to feel committed to the feeling and the vision you have. I had no idea, and that as an entrepreneur that I'm obviously are. I just think that you learn to live in uncertainty, but you have to have the commitment and have the trust that this will work out. You see something and I don't know, I just so strongly wanted to do something. So, and if you send signals that you trust your idea and you believe so much in what you do, sooner or later, people will join you, because that sends a signal of trust in that you know in what you are doing. But I was also very keen on bringing people on the journey. I didn't have all the answers, so I wanted to be curious and all the time understand, is this the right direction? And therefore I surrounded myself with, I know Steve Jobs said that once, that he said, always hire people that are smarter than you. And I love that. That has been my device and my inspiration. So I'm not the smartest one in our team, far from. So, but I have a drive and I have a commitment, and I make sure to complement my competences and make sure to have smart and great people around me, so we together can make this change. But it's pretty crazy, those 13 years in that sentence, because would I start Mitt Liv today with the experience and the learnings I have? I don't know. I'm not sure, actually, because it's been such a journey and so many compromises. And I have been living with this organization for 13 years. So it's also a lifestyle. And a compromise with your private life, because it's not, and you do not build an organization 8 to 5. You build an organization when it needs to be built, and that can be whenever in the week, and maybe no vacation. So
thank you so much for your openness here, Sofia, because I think it's super important to discuss those things about entrepreneurship and leadership. I just yesterday had a discussion with my, I'm in a business accelerator, and we have a mini tribe of my accountability advisor, and we had an office hour and we discussed it. They were like, are you willing to give up? Do you want to go back to the corporate now? And not like I hated my corporate job. It's never been the case. I always find the positive in whatever situation I am in. But I said, and we discussed it because it's super tough. And at the moment, to me, I'm very vulnerable now at the moment, but it's super tough. I'm just as you said, compromising. And I'm trying to not compromise my family and relationship with my husband and my time with my daughter. But it means that I'm compromising my time with myself and for myself. And that's not sustainable. So we were discussing those things. And I said, no, I don't want to give up, because even when it's tough, even when it's frustrating and scary, I still am connected to my why. And I just don't question my choice at all. It's a matter of time, I know it. And for me, the question is more whether I will make it to that point where it really turns around and I see all the results. Or I need to make some more drastic changes with my self-care at the moment to really get to that point. But I think that goes back to what you talked about with how D&I initiatives can succeed, that it has to be tapped into why. And from what I've heard from you, you said, I feel like, okay, maybe I'm interpreting incorrectly now, let me know if that's the case. But what I heard, Sofia, is that often these initiatives don't succeed because it's not connected to the why in the right way. And it's maybe connected in the beginning of the initiative, but then people forget the why. And I actually thought about the previous Livenar that I had last month with Sofia Appelgren, who was talking about the digital transformations and the human challenges within those. And she was talking about that you need to tap into your why on a daily basis. Every meeting, every discussion, every decision has to be going back to, why are we doing this? Is this tool implementation helping us on this mission of ours, as an organization, as a team, and so on? And I think this sounds like it's the same with the diversity and inclusion, not only the digital transformation.
Absolutely, and always focus on what works, not always and let that grow, and not always of what you need to understand what not works, of course, but at least in your entrepreneurship, always, I mean, I was always happy for the 1 or 2 who showed up. I never focused on the 10 who didn't. So I think when you focus on the positive things, it grows. And in the same in D&I work, I mean, there are so many great examples of projects and journeys within D&I that is on a journey, of course, because D&I never ends. But there are so many great examples to look at. So let's learn from each other and see and focus on the positive things. Then it will grow and it becomes more fun and more, and well, attract more people on the journey. I think that is very important. But yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing, Sofia. We have a question here from Itzel. I was wondering, how did you identify the values you mentioned to be important and which they were? So I think the question goes back to the beginning when you said that your values have been identified quite early on the Mitt Liv journey. So how did you define them and what they are actually?
So I think in an organization as ours, where we are not dependent on any government funding, and we all the time need to be on the toes for what the companies need, and make sure that we are always a step before everyone within the D&I topics. One of our values is, I don't know the word in English actually, new thinking. So we always have to be very innovative. Innovation. I think if you don't grow and develop your organization all the time, and that will be part of your DNA, your work, you will probably end up far behind. So I think innovation and new thinking is very important. But also inclusion for everyone within your organization, but include people on the journey to find the right answers, I think is very important. There are no experts within this field, is my view. I think we need to find answers together and challenge each other within this field together. So I think inclusion is also very important. And then the very basic, I mean, we all need to be respected for our differences, and I think our uniqueness should be valued, but we also need to talk about similarities. Sometimes we are not that different that we think we are, and to create this common base with inclusion, I think is very important to everyone, for everyone to feel valued and important, and have a sense of belongingness to the organization and the team. And we did a big work on this within our team, actually, to identify where we wanted to be as a group. And when we did that, we had an extremely diverse team. We had all the aspects. So it was quite of a long process to come where we are today. But I think it was worth it, because we learned a lot about everyone in the group and all the different perspectives. But then we talk a lot about when we need to decide whether we get many dilemmas to us to work on. And for example, when is gender diversity or gender equality, when does that stand over religion, for example? Because there are dilemmas when we need to decide on what value is the most important for this organization, because we end up in situations where we have to make a statement, and those things are also very interesting. And I think that is also a tool for your organizations, to bring out some dilemmas and discuss whether something stands over something else, because I think that's the fear of many, to have those hard discussions when you have to choose one direction over another. Well, to challenge your brains and challenge the complexity within the D&I think is very important. Well, that was a very long, and
I'm sure that everyone found a lot of golden nuggets in that answer, because you tapped on a lot of things. And I would love to have like at least a handful of things that I actually would like to develop but we're already out of time. And we still have some amazing questions in the chat. I will ask one of them, and then we'll go to my final questions that I'll always ask my guests. And Genius Leaders, if your question was not answered, please just drop it in the event on LinkedIn, and we'll happy to continue the conversation.
Yes, of course.
So one of the questions here is, what was the toughest decision you had to take as an entrepreneur?
Oh, it's been so many. But I think one hard decision was to step off the CEO role. Since this was my baby, I've been living with this organization, leading it as a CEO, involved in every decision. I suddenly felt that I can't give anything more in this role. It needs a new leadership. It's a new time, and we need processes, we need structures, we need to build a stable HR and everything. And that was not my strength. So realizing my weaknesses and deciding to step off as a CEO, that was actually a journey. But now my husband my ex-husband got very sick 3 years ago in cancer. So and I actually took that decision before that, but suddenly when you take a few steps back and you realize that you have built an organization that works without you. That's an incredible feeling. Because I know today that Mitt Liv would work without me, and the topics and the programs and everything we do for people deserves to exist long term, even if I'm not there. But I think that was a journey to let go of the top leadership in Mitt Liv.
That's very powerful story, and thanks a lot for sharing, Sofia, because again, it's your baby. I am saying that I have 2 babies. I gave a birth to a human baby 2 years ago, and then I gave a birth to a business baby 1 year ago. And it's a bit of a challenge to have both of them. And it is big to see how this baby starts walking on their own.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, that should be the overall goal. That's when,
to build something that is bigger than you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Sofia, 2 last questions, or 3 last questions. One is, what would be your 3 pieces of advice for all the genius leaders tuning in? It can be about private life, career, diversity, inclusion, entrepreneurship.
But I think the most powerful tool for me has been my curiosity. How does the world work out there? And I always have questions in my pocket. So there's always something to learn from every person you meet. And I think the curiosity tool is really powerful. And there is a sentence that says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I love that because, and then I think for me, it's been very important to challenge myself all the time. So I made sure to step out my comfort zones and very strategically. I even started the choir. And I also started reading French at university last autumn, doing things outside your normal all the time. To expand your normal, I think is very important. And by challenging myself, I always also made sure to have a professional mentor, a senior mentor, and I always had a dream list. And I've had different mentors for 1 year at a time, and in an industry or in a business that is very different from my world. So challenge myself in that way. And I would say that also be true with your weaknesses and make sure to complement and build your dream team out from your strengths and let other people grow in their strengths. That's my best tip, because I would never have been with the organization where we are today if I was full of prestige. So I'm very honest with what I can do, and I'm very honest with what I can't do. And that is definitely our key for success.
Yeah, that's super valuable. Thanks. What would be the one practical tip that our listeners and viewers can do already today?
I think it's very fascinating, actually, with our unconscious bias and how they impact us. So take a course on unconscious bias and learn to put words on your unconscious bias, and pay attention when they show up and why. I think that is a fun step to take, because that will open new perspectives and put new glasses on yourself, maybe.
That's great. I should do something like this. I'm quite conscious about my bias that pops up in my head, and I question myself and catch those. But yeah, you never know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So maybe I should also take a course.
Yes.
So Sofia, last question is how people can find you, support Mitt Liv, reach out if they want to learn more, etc.
Well, we have a homepage, mittliv.com. We're not very good on communication, unfortunately, but we are good. We are great doers. But there you find contacts and more information about how to apply to the mentorship programs. But also, if you have needs in your companies to work with D&I, there are some inspiration on the homepage, or you reach out to me, and you'll find my email at the homepage too. So I'm only glad to hear from you. And any feedback from this, since I almost never talk about this in this way, it's very welcome.
I see a lot of people thanking us in the chat. So they're saying that it was truly amazing and very interesting event and very insightful. So yeah, I'm pretty sure you managed to send your message across, and people found a lot of value in our conversation. Thank you so much, Sofia, for finding this time in your busy schedule. I know that you have so much going on, and I'm very, very grateful that you could share with us today. Thank you everyone for joining us live, and everyone who will be listening in the replay or watching in replay. Thanks for tuning in your on your schedule rules. And just one very last moment, next month, the 6th of April, that will be the first Tuesday of April, I'll have a bit of a different webinar, because that time I will be teaching, and I'll have one of the clients of mine coming and joining me, but we'll be talking about the junior zone and how you can get into your junior zone. So join us. I will very soon open the registration for that. So keep your eyes open and let's stay in touch. Connect with us on LinkedIn or through our emails, and we'll be happy to continue the conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and good luck, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I stay here, Anna.